Folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for tuning in, folks. I love Fridays, Jason, because you and I go live and we get to talk about all the nonsense going on in the news. And folks, we always encourage you to share this with your friends, family members, neighbors that are going to vote Democrat. We're coming down to the wire. This is an important episode to get to those people that are still on the fence or still believe the lies about Trump. It is not too late. Every vote matters, Jason, because you and I are on a push for the popular mandate.
Absolutely. Hey, shout out Kagan Girl. Thanks for joining us already on Rumble with the first chat. Giddy up.
Get in there.
I gotta say, this election cycle has been completely unprecedented as far as I'm concerned. Never seen anything like it in my lifetime. We have never seen a presidential candidate like President Donald J. Trump. I am so thankful he came on the scene. He woke people up to corruption in the government. But I got to say, the first half of the episode, we're going to talk about Kamala Harris. Because a couple days ago, Kamala Harris did a town hall on CNN, which should have been the easiest lay down interview ever. And I got to say, it was worse than I expected. You should totally have to watch it. We're going to show you some clips. But Todd, in your lifetime, have you ever seen a presidential candidate as bad as Kamala Harris?
Has anybody? And I just want to give a shout out to Fally. We got our regulars over on Rumble. That is the place to be. And Jason, I think my dad is watching live on Rumble. When he said, "How can I watch the show today?" I said, "Here's the Rumble link. You're not getting on Facebook. You're not getting on YouTube. Don't even go on Twitter. Go right to our Rumble page." So welcome aboard, Fally, and welcome aboard, Dad, if you tuned in today. But Kamala Harris, Jason, my goodness, like, number one, her policies are awful. I've gone on record saying it wasn't Joe Biden's senility. It's not Kamala Harris's low IQ that frightened me as much as their communism. But when you partner these things together, at a certain point, there needs to be a minimum standard of how not senile you are or how not low IQ you are. And Kamala Harris has set the bar so low for voters. You watch her talk. She gets asked questions like, "What are your weaknesses?" Like, these are interview practice questions you get in high school, and she couldn't even answer that stuff. She is just so bad at all of this.
Oh my God, I hope that's one of the clips. Todd always grabs the clips. And for those who don't know, on our Rumble channel, the American Tribune, we run clips and we write articles about them on our website, the American Tribune. Todd does commentary on them. And like, one of the clips coming out is literally Kamala Harris was asked, like, "What is your weaknesses?" or "What was your biggest mistake?" Anybody who has ever done a job interview in your life has been asked those questions. I mean, I don't care if you interviewed for McDonald's at 14 years old. They're going to say, "What's your weakness? What's your strength?" And everybody should have an answer to that. This should not be tough. And for you to be 14 days out from people voting for you for president, actually, voting's already started. Oh my God, Todd, I can't even wrap my head around how. And here's the thing: if you're a Democrat voter, and if you're marking the box for Kamala Harris, I normally don't say this to politics. Like, don't break up friends or family over this, but I can't fathom why on earth you would think it's a great idea to check the box. Like,
no, what does she offer? I got in a Twitter battle yesterday, Jason, and then I got the clip. I think that's the one we'll start with today about, can you reflect on what you've learned? What are your weaknesses? But these people out there, you just ask the question, like, what is the positive reason to vote for Kamala Harris? Other than, if you don't say Donald Trump in your response, why are you voting for Kamala Harris? They can't do it. Democrat voters cannot tell you why they are voting for Kamala Harris if it does not include the word Donald Trump in their response. And Jason, I'm going to do my live show over on my new Rumble channel, the American Tribune Live. And we're going to go through the reasons why I'm voting for Donald Trump on Election Day. And I got a side-by-side ready to go. Here are the reasons why I'm voting for Donald Trump. Here are the reasons why I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. And I'm going to stick all to policy, because no one can tell you a single policy that Kamala Harris offers that is good for you or good for this country. Like, not a single one.
Well, I got to say, too, I mean, just to give a shout out to Todd, a couple years ago, Todd was in education. He was principal. We saved him from that. He came to work as a partner on the American Tribune. And Todd really has a great take on politics, and he does 2 shows a week, might be ramping that up a little bit. And he started a 3-part series, and it was going to be like Tim Walz is a liar and Kamala Harris is an idiot. And both episodes, like, I was watching them and he kept going and going. I was riveted the whole time. They both ended up being like 2 hours long, but it was like, it was almost like it was a therapy session for Todd, where it's like, oh my God, these like Tim Walz. We know in Minnesota how bad of governance Tim Walz is, and he's a freaking liar. And the fact that they picked him to run, the fact that he's still a candidate for vice president after stolen valor, the guy lied about hot dishes. The guy lied that he didn't.
And we talked about all of it. Yeah, Jason, you referenced I did 2 hours on Kamala's lies, 2 hours on Tim Walz's lies. Haven't even gotten to their actual policies yet, but it's so important. And I framed up this episode for Democrat voters in my own network, my own families, my own friends. I think it'd be powerful for you to go over to that Rumble channel, get those videos, share it with your Democrat voting family members and friends before it is too late on election day, because they've never heard these lies before. Jason, you and I have lived in these lies. Our audience has lived in these lies. But if you vote Democrat, you have never heard them before, and certainly never heard the counter argument to be like, oh, wait a minute, he did lie about his hot dish. He won 2 recipe contests.
Right. And if you did hear the lies and you did know they lied to you and you're still voting for them, dude, I don't even know what to say.
You can't say Donald Trump's a liar and then watch 4 hours of me debunking the presidential and vice presidential nominee lying constantly. You can't make that claim. I can't vote for Trump because he's a liar. Pump the brakes. Your candidates are consummate liars. But Jason, I think it's time to get some videos.
Oh my gosh, let's frame up the town hall, Todd. Give us the deets on it.
How do you frame this up? My first question is, why do they keep sending her out there? She is losing votes sitting in the basement, but she's losing even more votes when she goes out and speaks in front of people, especially in these formats. Kamala Harris cannot speak, cannot think on her feet. She's good at a teleprompter. You and I have given her credit before for that, Jason. But when she has asked questions in real time and is forced to give answers to those questions, it is an absolute train wreck. JD Vance is always on the campaign trail saying, keep talking, Kamala, because every time you open your mouth, we get 100,000 more votes. And that is absolutely true. But she goes on CNN. Last week, we talked about how she went over on Fox News, sat down with Bret Baier. We covered that train wreck of an interview. And now she's on Town Hall with CNN. And Jason, these were friendly questions. Bret Baier did a great job over on Fox. He said, voters have concerned if you're going to siphon off these Never Trump audience members of our network. What about transgenderism? What about the border? He's asking real questions. CNN asks her, like, what are your weaknesses? How would you reflect on what you've learned over the couple of years? And we've got 2 of these clips to show you about the most softball of softball questions. And she tries to laugh, and the audience is dead silent. You can hear it when she does her cackle, her giggle. She's expecting to feed off the audience. Dead silence.
It's amazing. Hey, shout out, we got
you
people
bring to the table
clicking in too. Charlotte and Marsha over on the Facebook pages. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
and how do you plan to overcome them while you're in office?
That's a great question, Joe. Well, I am certainly not perfect. So let's start there.
Yeah, we had to cut it because she just pauses. She just stares. And so this person was like, let's just get to Kamala actually talking.
Perhaps a weakness. I think that my decision-making process, but I actually think it's the strength, is I really do value. My team will tell you I am constantly saying, let's kick the tire on that. Let's kick the tires. So I may not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it. I'm going to want to study it. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, I confess. I mean, I've made many mistakes.
Just a brutal response. You've got some weaknesses. How do you overcome them? What's your strategy to learning about new things? I don't know about you, Jason, but if I'm the acting vice president of the United States, an aspiring president of the United States, I should already have some awareness of how the economy works, about the border situation, how government functions. Like, do you have to research everything as president? Like, yes, you don't know everything. Yes, you have a team of advisors, but like, do you know anything?
I've just got a thing too. So back in my days, I worked in the corporate world. I worked in retail, supervised a bunch of locations. I was chief operating officer of a company. You know, I've interviewed thousands of people over my life. And I always had one piece of advice that I gave everybody when you were interviewing a candidate. And I said, if you walked into the break room with your lunch, would you want to sit there and sit on the table next to them and have a conversation with them, or would you seek the farthest seat in the break room away from that person. And if you would seek the farthest seat away from that person, don't hire them. They are not going to work out. They're just like, if they bring nothing. Kamala Harris, here she is for minutes. And this is like 10 minutes worth of answer that we had to clip down into just when she actually said something, because it's just staring. And I can't even, Todd.
I can't. Yeah, one of our comments in here. Let's see. Man, wow, these comments are flying. Yeah, Vanessa started early, and when we played the clip here, can't even stand looking at her. And that's before she opens her mouth. Yeah, I'm with you, Vanessa. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the comment here. Cannot stand looking at her at this point, and as soon as she opens her mouth, you're just going cringe. But we have another one here.
There's something you can point to in your life, political life, or in your life in the last 4 years that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes, and they range from, you know, if you've ever parented a child, you know, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
What did we just listen to, Jason?
I got to say, so you've been vice president for almost 4 years. You were the border czar to solve root causes. You did nothing with your administration.
She was allegedly, not really.
Allegedly board czar for Facebook, yes. She was, everybody agrees, she was tasked with finding the root cause and helping come up with a solution. You've followed some of the worst policies ever. You've got inflation that total stacked inflation is about 30% since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took office. So I was telling my stepson last night, he was over, your $100 today is worth $70 compared to 4 years. Like, that's just what the math is. And you can't say one simple thing. And here's what I'm gonna say too, is too bad. She could actually try to have an answer to that. Like, she could say, you know what? Maybe we let too many people in the border. You know, my heart says I really want these people in to live the American dream, blah, blah, blah. But we were too aggressive. That's why the last few months we've put back in some things to slow it down. Like, you could have 100 answers that actually could maybe be passing. But like, everybody's a parent. You've made mistakes. You don't even answer the question. It is insane.
Yeah, I want to get to a comment, Jason. I think you probably eyed it as well. But this campaign, this is what is wrong with these people, though. They refuse to admit defeat, refuse to admit they were wrong. They don't feel bad about the wide open border. They don't feel bad about inflation. That is my gut instinct on that case. But if I'm her campaign manager and I'm looking at the polls and it says, okay, 80% of Americans want a secure border, 95% of Americans want their money to be spread farther when they're purchasing things, all Kamala Harris has to say, to your point, Jason, is, look, we tried some things. We made some mistakes. I am determined in my administration to right the wrongs, and here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to support the Trump border bill. And yeah, I called it out when he was proposing it, but I've looked at the issues as vice president. I've seen that it's been disastrous. Like, she could say any number of things. It could still be a lie, but at least it would sound plausible enough to voters. Like, okay, she admitted she was wrong. She has reflected on the disasters of her administration. They can't even do that.
Oh my gosh. Hey, and shout out in the chat. I think we have our first Harris voter.
That's the one I wanted to play, Jason.
Oh, welcome to the show, Kathy. Why not play it in its entirety? Kamala has more intelligence, experience, and no criminal activity in her resume, unlike Putin-loving Trump. Hey, here's what I'm going to say, Kathy. I bet you love Kamala Harris so great you couldn't wait to vote for her in your primary. I bet you were so happy. I bet back in 2020 when she was running, she was 1% of the Democrat electorate. That's where she was polling at when she dropped out. I bet you were part of that 1%. I've been looking for that 1%. That 1% that said, you know what? Of all the Democrat nominees, Amy Klobuchar and Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg, all these guys, I like Kamala. I am glad we found you, Kathy. Welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. We appreciate you tuning in.
Yeah. What else can you say, Jason? Thanks for watching, Kathy. But no criminal activity. I think I need to do another 2-hour deep dive on criminal activity of your beloved Democrats. And this is not to excuse any alleged criminal activity. But Jason, Donald Trump is the most investigated human being in this country, bar none. I'm still waiting for any actual criminal activity. It seems like they're throwing out every major case that you were made to hyperventilate about, Kathy, all getting tossed out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I bet Kathy doesn't know, like, even the Trump judgment that they went after him for. Like, I watched the hearing on the appeals court. The ruling won't come down till after the election, but they were threatening the attorneys that went after Trump for the devaluing or the overvaluing of his property. They were practically threatening them with disbarment. So, I mean, that's going to come out after the election. So it'll get buried in the news, but yeah, these criminal cases are falling apart. Nathan Wade was up on he gave testimony this week where he admitted that him and Fannie had been meeting with the White House, which he lied about in his disbarment hearing. It's like, it's all coming to roost. On Fally welcoming in Kathy to the crowd.
That's in 2016 too.
Right.
Hillary was really upset when Democrats in 2016 cried stolen election. I know she was really, it was safe and secure. Trust the ballot process. So I know she was principled on that matter as well, Jason.
Absolutely.
Kathy, the Kathy's out there. Jason, I got to say, this show, my podcast, when I go solo, these shows are for the Kathys out there. What was it, Jan last week? We got our Jans out in the world as well. We do this not to promote Donald Trump's agenda, not to promote all right-wing talking points. We do this because we are freedom from the press. We are presenting the truth. You don't have to like everything about Donald Trump to be enthusiastic to vote for him. But my goodness, when you believe the lies from mainstream corporate left-wing state media, and you're led to believe that he's some Putin apologist criminal, we have so much work to do with these folks.
Oh my gosh. I got to say, shout out to the audience today too. We got a lot of new names in the chat and some great takes. Harris voters and supporters are absolute imbeciles. All convictions are political attacks and been dismissed in the process of being dismissed. Mark actually follows what's really going on in the news. He doesn't just watch CNN or MSNBC and say Trump is Hitler, which stay tuned for the last half hour of the Rumble only, because the rhetoric on the Democrat side is reached insane levels, just insane levels.
Yeah, I think Kathy's worried about Donald Trump weaponizing the government too, and the DOJ to go after his political opponents. Hey, Kathy kind of admitted as much here. Like, how many of his sycophants have been indicted and served time? Indeed, Kathy, how many people has the Biden DOJ gone after in Trump's orbit? Dare I say, go after your political opponent.
Now, and I got to say too, and then we'll have to move on with Kathy. Kathy, I'm 50. Thanks for asking. It was my birthday a little bit ago. I got my first grandbaby. So for your first statement, he's a rapist. No, Trump's not a rapist. He was never convicted of rape. The only thing he was convicted of is civil liability in the Jeannie Carroll case. Fraudster, con man. I mean, that's kind of a glittering generality. How is he any more fraudulent or conny than Nancy Pelosi in her stock trades? I don't know if you notice, every time Nancy Pelosi rules on something, she sold stock that was affected by that right before and incited an insurrection. If you really think that the MAGA crowd there on January 6th was going to overthrow the government and forgot to bring their guns, you're crazy. So, Kathy, we appreciate. I hope you tune in every week. I hope you see some of this stuff and you go, we've got a year's worth of episodes. Go back and go, hey, I never saw that. I didn't know that. And hopefully you'll open your eyes. But we pray for you, Kathy. Everybody put it in the chat. We're praying for Kathy.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Peacefully.
I
don't know if Kathy's ever seen that clip. Yeah, Kathy, again, thanks for watching. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for the conversation. I don't know if it's a conversation. It gives us a chance to debunk some of the media lies that they tell about Donald Trump. But Jason, I think we got to move on from Kathy. And Cindy is praying for her, as we all should. There are a lot of Kathys and Jans voting in the election, unfortunately, with bad information.
All right, where do we go next?
So we got more town hall. Kathy said, play the entire clip. Okay, Kathy, this one's for you. More Kamala town hall, more answers. This one actually, now we're getting to the land of frightening. Here we go.
Be in favor of expanding the court to say 12, so each justice has only one circuit court other than Chief Justice to assist in making judgments more balanced.
Well, to your point, there is no question that the American people increasingly are losing confidence in the Supreme Court.
False. Kamala Harris and the establishment and Democrats are losing confidence. Most Americans, not so much.
It's actually
And
the highest
in
rated
large part
government agency.
Yeah. Let's talk about Congress approval rating, shall we?
because of the behavior of certain members of that court and because of certain rulings, including the Dobbs decision and taking away a precedent that had been in place for 50 years, protecting a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. So I do believe that there should be some kind of reform of the court and
a reform of the Supreme Court. When we talk about actual policies Kamala Harris is putting forward, we have never heard anything more radical. We have always abided by 9 justices. Any change to that when you talk about reforming it, hacking it? Jason, I'm open-minded to the idea of term limits on the Supreme Court, but they only ever talk about it when decisions don't go their way. And again, we got to debunk this. The justices overturned a bad Roe decision from the 1970s, and they sent the issue back to the states. Kamala Harris, Kathy, Jan in our audience, Democrat voters out there, are under the impression that when Roe was overturned, it made abortions illegal in the United States. That is furthest from the truth. It went back to the states where we live in. Jason, Tim Walz signed legislation after the fact that now allows you to basically kill a baby if it survives an attempted abortion, far beyond what Roe allowed. I don't think people know this, but Roe offered limitations. It said abortion is legal, but states can legislate after the second trimester. So there were still limitations under Roe that people do not talk about. And Jason, fun fact, there were more abortions in the year following Roe's overturn than there had been the previous year under Roe. So this idea that you can't get an abortion, that Trump banned abortion, it is simply not true. And I don't know how we can help people understand that.
Well, and let me just break down a few things Kamala said. So the question was, do we expand the court to 12? The fact of the matter is, Republicans, when they're in power, don't want to expand the Supreme Court. And when Democrats are in power, they don't want to expand the Supreme Court. They feel of all the things screwed up in our government, more people on the Supreme Court is not the answer, right? And that's a consistent belief. Democrats, when Trump wins in 2024, if he says, hey, I want to expand the Supreme Court and make it 12, every argument you hear them making is going to be, oh, no, he can't do that. Oh, he's a fascist, blah, 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 blah. And that's because they don't believe that the Supreme Court should be 12. They believe that Democrats should appoint a controlling majority on the Supreme Court. So let's be clear. Second, of all the things we need to change governmentally, structurally, those sorts of things, the president, the Congress has the ability to change some things. They have the ability to ban congressional stock trading. Every American, I think, would agree with that. Like, it's polling unbelievably high. They have the ability to require identification and proof of citizenship to vote. Once again, virtually all Americans agree with that. And that polls incredibly high. All this stuff they could redo without even touching the Supreme Court. And the last thing is talking about Roe versus Wade and abortion and all that. I'm pro-life. Todd's pro-life. A lot of our viewers are pro-life. When I was young, I was pro-choice because I didn't want the government involved in my decisions. And unfortunately, the government needs to be involved. Like, the government's involved saying murder is illegal because without that, people would kill people. And as I became older, prohibiting murdering babies, probably not a bad government rule. So where do we define where babies is? That's something we need to do. But the fact of the matter is that's one of those things that should be a state issue until there's a clear consensus in America. And I think you throw it down to the state level, you let the states decide, and then over time, it's going to flush itself out. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, we'll have a general consensus in the country. I think most people, even pro-life, don't think you should be able to abort a baby in the last trimester. Like, at that point, it's a baby, right? And even the most ardent pro-choicer, and there, don't get me wrong, there's still some crazies out there that like, nope, right up till the moment of birth, you can kill the baby. But I think an average Democrat's like, yeah, you don't need to be killing the baby month 8 unless, the mom sells there. And I think most pro-choicers like, hey, if you take the morning after pill, we're not going to sweat it. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't necessarily agree with that.
I'm not going to go to jail.
Right. Yeah. But Roe versus Wade, throwing it back to the states, that's how it's supposed to work, guys. Like the states are supposed to have different, like Minnesota gets to have different rules than Iowa on some things like that.
Yeah, Jason, let's go big picture to the founding. Most decisions were supposed to be made at the state level. We don't want a big government. We don't want the federal government deciding everything for Americans. We can vote with our feet and move to different states that have our same values, same have culture, change the landscape there. Most issues should be a state issue. We all should have celebrated that. But unfortunately, you're led to believe that we are a democracy, not a constitutional republic. Oh, it's back at the states level. He must have overturned abortion. We are so far away from our understanding of what this country should be.
Well, and I'll give you a great example that I vehemently disagree with. In Minnesota, we pay taxes and pay for every kid in school's lunch. I think that's ridiculous. I think parents should pay for their own lunch. But Minnesota as a state gets to decide that. Wisconsin, Iowa, many other states in the nation don't have that idiotic rule. They also don't pay. I mean, Todd, what do we pay? It's almost 10% of our income.
9.6. Don't
goes,
quote me on that, but Jason, you and I, for doing this show and getting paid today, 9.6% of everything we earn in this show today goes right to Governor Tim Walz's coffers.
Yeah, so think of that. If you subscribe on Rumble, it's like $5 for the subscription. Like we give $1 to Governor Tim Walz. I mean, it's the craziest thing ever.
Yeah, you're welcome, Minnesota. So we talked about Supreme Court packing. Here she is again, though, talking about what her policies might actually look like. This is equally insane.
Let me ask you, you've talked about codifying Roe v. Wade. That would obviously require 60 votes in the Senate, a majority of the House. That's a big leap. We don't have that yet. If that's not possible to codify it in the House, what do you do?
I think we need to take a look at the filibuster, to be honest with you.
If she were to...
All right, and then they got commentary here. We'll save that. We'll get our own commentary in there. She is okay with ending the filibuster. And to your point, Jason, earlier, they say that now, but can you imagine if Donald Trump and his Senate and House majority, when they win in a landslide this November in a couple of weeks, tried to get rid of the filibuster? Democrats would be outraged. They don't believe this.
Right, and eliminating the filibuster, whenever any political party brings something up, I always say, would they be okay if the other party did it? You know what I mean? And if President Trump comes up and says, I want to explain the Constitution in a nutshell, you're supposed to have like a super majority to make anything happen. Like 60, like 2/3 of people should support something before you take federal action. There's things like filibusters, House, Senate, there's protocols in line, but as a general oversimplification, it shouldn't be 51% we go do something radical. It should be like a 2/3 before we do it. Things like the filibuster give the ability to do that because 2/3 of people can override a filibuster. I mean, people don't know that. If 2/3 of the senators agreed with your policy position, you could override the filibuster. But you can't. You got 50. Actually, right now they have 50%, but they have the presidency. So at 50%, they want to ram through radical legislation. And it is the craziest thing ever. And actually, great take from Kim. Democrats want to take away our rights. They don't want to lose power. They will cheat any way they can. She wants everyone on Medicare, and the government will be in control of our health care. Believe me, you presidents, grandparents will have medication, need surgeries denied. I mean, that's a huge point. And actually, Kim, you should hop over to Rumble for the second half because we're going to talk about some different scenarios to watch out for. Democrats, like, they're losing. Like Kamala's throwing Hail Mary after Hail Mary, and I am terrified of what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks between now and the election. But every Democrat program is to put the government more in charge of your life. And at some point, you have to break that cycle. I mean, think of it like Social Security. People aren't even planning for their own retirement. Like my generation and older, like they were just counting, oh, the government's going to take care of that. I'm sorry, folks. That is moronic. Don't think that way. Take care of yourself. That's what we need to get America back to.
I mean, you talk about Minnesota feeding kids. Parents don't even have to worry about giving their kids breakfast and lunch anymore. Do you really want to hand over that kind of authority to the state? That never ends well. And Jason, just to kind of bookend the other comment you made about the filibuster, we don't want rule by a simple majority. That is how the Constitution has so many, we always say checks and balances. That is for a reason, because you don't want 51% of the country to just steamroll everybody else. You need a clear consensus to make decisions, to make policies, to pass laws. Otherwise, it just devolves into a tyranny of the simple majority. And that is not a good thing. I don't know if we have to explain why that is a bad thing. I don't know, but then we got Jans and Kathy, so maybe we do.
We got Kathy out there thinking Trump's going to overthrow the government. God, I wish.
Yeah,
Like,
don't get our hopes up, Kathy. We want him to be the bad guy you make him out to be.
oh, I mean, as an aside, all the things they've accused Trump of, he's going to go in, he's going to fire everybody in the government, he's going to stop sending aid to foreign countries, he's going to deport traitors like these generals that lied to him. I'm like, man, don't promise me a good time.
Hopes up. All right, I think we can do maybe one or two more clips. And then actually, Jason, do you want to go to some, because Kathy's watching this, she's like, oh, look at you, Trumpers, you're brainwashed by the Trump cult. I don't know. Should we listen to CNN talk about Kamala's town hall appearance? Because it's CNN, it's Anderson Cooper, it's Jake Tapper, it's Dana Bash. It's interesting that they reacted the exact same way we did.
Right.
So here we go.
Where, you know what, I got so many, I don't look at comments about myself, but I was looking up some comments about my grief podcast, and I came across this whole inundation from people who are Harris supporters saying to me online today, like, how dare you, what a betrayal that you would ask her these questions. And I'm
just let that sink in. How dare you ask our candidate questions? And Jason,
Right.
we showed a few of them. What are your
And the questions were like,
questions?
what's your
She should have been hitting a home run off the tee. They were that easy, but she couldn't even do that. But how dare you ask our candidate questions?
like, you misunderstand what my job is. I'm not on MSNBC, or and no disrespect. What they do is they're very talented, but I don't watch it. I'm not interested in watching what these overpaid blow-dried anchors think, and I include myself in that overpaid blow-dried, although I don't blow-dry.
He's just sticking himself.
I am overpaid, but I don't want. I'm not interested in the anchor's opinion. I'm interested in facts and letting the viewers make up their own mind. So anyway.
There used to be a time when that's what all journalists did. Or maybe not. Maybe I have rose-colored lenses looking at history, but that is what a journalist is supposed to do. I will ask you a question, candidate, and you can answer the question. And then let the American people decide if your answer was worthless or not.
Well, it's so funny because I didn't watch the town hall live. Okay. We were spending time with the family. I was spending time with the grandbaby. Then the next day I saw some clips and I was getting ready. I do the Wayne Dupree podcast during the week. So I'm like, I better watch this thing. And this was an unmitigated disaster. I mean, my first job interview at 16 years old was more difficult than the questions Anderson Cooper was asking Kamala Harris. And I mean, I'm like, oh my God. To me, like, Brett Baer was awful. I thought it was disqualifying. The CNN town hall was worse because the questions were even easier and the answers were even worse. It was crazy.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't go down like the public school route. Whenever I hosted interviews as the assistant principal, I was like, how are you going to help the plight of historically marginalized communities? How are you going to make sure brown and black bodies show up every day and are represented? So they didn't ask her that question, but they might as well since she's a DE hire herself. But there is more CNN reaction. Here's Jake Tapper and Dana Bash.
Focused a lot more on Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say, than she did on many specifics in terms of what she would do.
If her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that.
I mean, that's an understatement. It had to pain them to admit that. But yeah, who was convinced? Like, I'm on the fence. I'm not going to vote for Trump, I don't think. But boy, Kamala Harris knocked it out of the park. Now I'll vote for her after that town hall. Like,
Right. Oh,
Okay,
you know, it's bad when CNN can't even lie about it.
Here's another one.
Take another hour of Kamala Harris. We just press play, let her keep going. We'd pay for another hour to let her keep not answering the questions. I think Anderson's asking her, well, why haven't you done it? You've been there for 4 years. Why have you done any of this? And the word salad answer she gave to that was just mind-boggling. I mean, it's blown up the internet, her answer to that question. I think the things that are troubling for people were her responses to, Van said about what you're going to do to reduce costs when they asked her at the beginning. We're hurting economically. She said, I'm going to prosecute corporations, right? That's not going to lower costs. How are you going to make things better for me? I'm going to prosecute people. Trump bad is not a message that's going to.
Newsflash, Trump ad apparently works because half this country still wants to vote for Kamala.
I was going to say, Jan, now we met Kathy this week. Trump bad works to a T for those guys. And I'm curious, your dad probably hasn't texted or anything, but I wonder if your dad's tuning in. We got to get him to like throw a comment up on Rumble or something like, hey, Todd's dad.
We got to get you to sign up to make an account on Rumble, Dad. But hope you're tuning in. And again, we encourage everyone. This show, we do it for a large audience, but oftentimes, like I said, for my own podcast, it's for the people in my orbit. They're always like, Todd, what do you do? Well, take a listen. If you're thinking of voting Democrat, why don't you listen to what I do before you actually cast your vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? I could understand voting for Barack Obama in 2008. Not as much in 2012. I did not vote for Barack Obama, but I understood the arguments for it. He was campaigning against, at the time, what George Bush was doing in the Middle East. I'm all there for it. He was campaigning on once and for all solving the race issues in the country, which was a complete lie, but I at least understood the motivation of people looking around saying like, yeah, it's not perfect still. We're a work in progress as our country. I do not understand the argument whatsoever for voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. That ship has long since sailed. All right, Jason, this one was hilarious. Donald Trump was asked to comment on the Kamala Harris town hall. I don't think he had seen it yet. This is a priceless reaction in real time.
She said during that town hall she believes they've handled the border correctly. CNN pressed her on it. Would you have done anything different? Do you regret anything? And she said, quote, I think we did the right thing.
Wait a minute, that she's handled it correctly?
Correct.
She said that?
She said that. She said, quote, I think we did the right thing.
We allowed 21 million people in. We allowed 13,099 murderers. We allowed mental institutions from all over the world. If she said that, look, she's a grossly incompetent person. And if she said that, they had the worst border in history.
I want
I just love that she's like, she said that?
The look on Donald Trump. See, Donald Trump, and we're going to talk about this in the next half hour, but Donald Trump is one of us. And I'm just imagining like a normal American citizen. You can even be a Democrat. You can be a Democrat in Chicago with the hundreds of thousands of migrants that the city's putting up in hotels. And if somebody at your barbecue says, yeah, Kamala said she handled the border well, and they look over at the migrant hotels and like, what? She said that? Like, and that's what's funny. You could even answer that question in a way that maybe people could buy. You know what? Hey, we really felt bad for these people in these third world countries. We want them to live the American dream. So, maybe we let too many in than we can handle. So we need to adjust that. You could even try that answer, but like, nah, we did it perfect. It's like, seriously, like everybody agrees this has been bad.
Yeah, I wouldn't change anything about Joe Biden's policies. I would have made the same decisions. Also, I'm running on day one in a new path forward. So square that circle for us, Democrat voters. Like, which one is it?
Oh,
okay.
Oh my gosh. We got any more Kamala we want to go through, or have we tortured everybody enough?
Well, should we hear her talk for herself about the border wall since we got Trump's reaction?
Oh my God, we totally should. That one's
Donald Trump. You criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember.
Yeah, let's talk about Donald Trump. I'm not going to answer the question. Spoiler alert, she doesn't answer the question, but let's see what she has to say.
Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
I pledge that I am going to bring forward that bipartisan bill to further strengthen and secure our border. Yes, I am. And I'm going to work across the aisle to pass a comprehensive bill that deals with a broken immigration system. I think Jackson's question, part of it was to acknowledge that America has always had migration, but there needs to be a legal process for it. People have to earn it. And that's the point that I think is the most important point that can be made, which is we need a president who is grounded in common sense and practical outcomes. Like, let's just fix this thing. Let's just fix it. Why is there any ideological perspective on this? Let's just fix the problem.
To fix the problem, you're doing this compromise bill. It does call for $650 million that was earmarked under Trump to actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense, because he actually didn't do much of anything. I just talked about that wall, right? We just talked about it. He didn't.
I want to say things that would get us banned off of all of our social media platforms.
I was gonna say, did you change your mind? Do you no longer think the wall's stupid? All you gotta do is say, yeah. You know what? Turns out he got one right.
Yes.
You know, you could even say, yep, he was right. Should have built the wall. And this is a big difference between his administration and ours. We're actually going to fund it and build it. Like, you could answer that question so many ways that would not be ridiculous. But here's the thing. Everybody was screaming that wall was racist. So now you can't admit that it wasn't. Although Democrats really don't care about, are they full of crap or that kind of thing. So it's crazy. Oh, hey, Dee Dee showed up. Dee Dee, welcome to the podcast. We missed you. Todd was sending out the search party. He's like, where's Dee Dee? What the heck? But yeah, anyways, Kamala Harris, she's just, this is the most bizarre answer I've ever seen. And just to clarify, the bipartisan immigration bill, if I had to sum it up in just a couple sentences and take out the Ukraine and Israel funding, just with the border, it takes what happened for an immigration level in the Biden presidency and it makes that law. So it says how many people Joe Biden let in and Kamala Harris let in. This is the law of the land. Like, that's the baseline number. That's what it does. Go run the math, go read the bill. And I think most Americans can say, and I mean, here's the argument for immigration. Like, we want to take in the hungry, the poor. We're Christians. We want to help them. But the fact of the matter is there's only so many people you can take in. And all those people should be vetted. And all those people should be, want to live with American norms and become taxpayers and all that stuff, all the stuff.
Yeah. Jason, I'm going to take a more hardline approach. I think I've become, I don't even want to use the word radicalized, but at this point, Kamala talks about a common sense solution. Build a wall, put people down there to prevent you from crossing that wall, over it or under it, or getting in entirely. Until every American is taken care of, there are problems around the world. There's poverty around the world. There are horrible government institutions doing awful things to people around the world. We have those problems at home. The American government exists to take care of and protect the American citizen first. I'm over it. She wants common sense. I'll solve the problem in 5 minutes. Here's funding for a wall. Here's funding for troops at the wall. And you don't get to come in until we figure it out. Jason, there was just a tweet from, you could never guess who it was, but Justin Trudeau up in Canada, who said, I'm going to limit the number of immigrants that are going to come into Canada now, because we've got to figure out who's here and start taking care of who is here. So what I just said is almost what Justin Trudeau is proposing up in Canada now. I mean, enough is enough, folks. We have got to figure this out and take care of Americans first.
And it's funny because Christ, even in the teachings of the Bible, like, he talked about, like, you got to take care of yourself first. You know what I mean? And they try to use religion against us, but there is nothing wrong with saying we need to make sure, like, America's in a really bad place economically, socially, culturally. Like, we got some things to fix here, folks. And that doesn't involve importing.
Jason, if I were those folks and I could come to America, you bet I would hop on a train and do a caravan and try to cross the border. I don't blame them for coming here, but it's America's job. It's our politicians' jobs to say, I'm sorry, there is a wall that you're not getting through. Like, this is America, and we're going to take care of Americans right now.
Right. And if you want to request membership to be an American, you can do that. Here's the process. I mean, that process already exists.
It exists already. There is a way to do that the right way.
Right.
I think did enough damage. Kamala did enough damage on herself, but I think we have played enough clips that you get the idea. It was just a disaster of a town hall. Easier questions, still couldn't answer anything. Only had Donald Trump as a response.
Right. I gotta say, we probably need a palate cleanse, though. Is it time that we talk about Trump and McDonald's?
I think we cannot talk about this enough. Overview. I told you before the show started, Jason, Donald Trump's campaign, it's a solid campaign from start to finish. He's done very little wrong. You've talked about on other shows here, very few leaks coming from his campaign, but just the way he's getting out there in front of cameras and getting involved with just regular people. I mean, two of the most iconic photos from any presidential campaign have come from the same couple months when he stood up after getting grazed by a bullet, and now his drive-through image. Like, these are iconic, legendary. These will go down in history as just being part of one of the sharpest presidential campaigns. I mean, this is a man that has connected to the American people.
Well, and I got to say, for those who don't know, President Trump really is a huge McDonald's fan. He is a germphobe, and McDonald's, a well-run McDonald's, is one of the cleanest like food things you can get for fast food. And so that's why he eats McDonald's and he likes McDonald's. He's been a huge McDonald's fan forever. And the reason why he went to McDonald's is because Kamala Harris claimed she worked at McDonald's. Now, Todd, I'm going to try something. I'm going to put you on the spot on here. You love when I do that.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah. So let's say pick your third job you ever had. Okay. What was your third job? Where did you work? Tell us a little bit about it.
Third job, I'll just say I was a paraprofessional in the Denver public school system at the time. How about that?
There you go.
Graduated college, did a little traveling, came back to the United States after being overseas for a while, and had to get a job. So there I am, paraprofessional. That's how I got
Now, if you wanted to convince me you really worked at that job, can you give me some details about the job?
I have pay stubs. I've got email records of me communicating with my potential employers at the time. You could go to the Denver public school system. I bet they have records of me working there as well.
Remarkable. Now, Todd, you could do that to me. You could ask me my first job, second job, third job, whatever. Even I'm 50 years old. You could go back to 1990 when I got my first job. And I could tell you the person that interviewed me, her name was Liz. She was great. My store manager was Alan Stocker. I worked at Sears Roebuck in Department 9A. I could give you plenty of facts. Kamala Harris has nobody that remembered she ever worked at McDonald's. Kamala Harris, the McDonald's Corporation, has no record she worked there. The franchisor who Kamala claimed she worked at should be coming out going, oh my God, I'm the franchisor. Kamala worked for me. Kamala should know her shift supervisor, who any sort of relevant fact that would show. Oh, and like Dee Dee says, Social Security Administration would have 100%. A record of it.
There are records.
There would be plenty of ways to disprove. Now, and we talked about this when it came out. The biggest issue isn't if Kamala worked at McDonald's or not. The issue is that she's so brazenly lying about it. And Donald Trump, even when he hosted people at the White House, do you remember this one, Todd? This was awesome.
That's why I pulled up this image. They hated him at the time. He did a formal White House dinner and catered McDonald's in.
Right.
He's always loved McDonald's. And Jason, I don't know. I haven't thought about this much other than you just talked about it. Did she say McDonald's because that she's trying to take away Trump's thing? I think she said it to try to relate to people because, she was born in the middle class. And so middle class girls work at McDonald's, apparently. I can't help but think that it was a little kind of dig at Trump as well. You could have said any restaurant, but it was Mickey D's.
Well, yeah, and we're going to go through some clips of the iconic Trump visit. A lot of our audience might not have seen it. But maybe before we do, Todd, can you pull up Will's Substack? Because I just want to really give a shout out to that piece that he wrote this week.
Yeah, let me share the screen.
And this is for the Democrats in the audience that say, why do we like Donald Trump? And Will, he did a phenomenal piece this week on the AmericanTribune.news called Duty, Privilege, and Trump's Popularity. He also had a big Twitter thread, if you follow Will Tanner on Twitter, where he talked about what Donald Trump wore when he went to McDonald's and how Donald Trump, if you look at that picture of him, he has cufflinks and, really nice shirt and shoes and that kind of thing. Here's one of the appeals that Trump has. And a lot of people don't even Like, think of this, but when you hear it, it kind of makes sense. Donald Trump represents an aristocratic elite in America. And anybody who doesn't think this aristocracy exists in America, you're an idiot. There are the haves, there are have-nots. There are the rich and powerful, and there's not. I mean, that's just a reality in every society. Donald Trump is not ashamed, embarrassed at all that he is rich. I mean, his wife is a supermodel. He owns a building in the middle of New York that says Trump Tower. He puts his name Trump on everything. The one thing, though, if you talk to any of the people that work for Trump, they think he is an excellent boss, and Trump knows the names of the doormen and knows some of the people that work in his business. I'm talking like employees, because Donald Trump aspires to this old cultural thing where he used to have that our aristocrats like understood how important the peons were. And it's funny, when I was a regional manager, I always made sure when I went into a store, I went and engaged with, like, I know the people that made it happen. That guy in receiving nobody ever says hi to. Like, I went and found that guy because I knew how important he was. The guy that does the trash, the guy that hauls the cardboard, the full-time stockers. Like, part of my success in retail was I really tried to engage, like, not just with the store manager, but really with the people that make things go. And and Donald Trump knows that. And he is both not ashamed or afraid to wear and dress according to his station, but he's also not afraid to engage positively and productively and very respectfully with the employees. And he is not going to besmirch them by saying, like, hey, I'm going to throw on a McDonald's uniform and shirt and pretend like I'm some McDonald's employee. Like, how many times do you see these rich politicians like, I'm going to throw on a polo shirt and act like I'm a normal person? Like, you aren't normal. Just own it. Like, that's okay. We understand there's really rich people that are really powerful and you live a different life than we do. Donald Trump gets that. He's not ashamed, and he makes it a point to connect with Americans.
And he does it so naturally. I guess my own story so when I was an assistant principal, Jason, I'm not a billionaire. I'm not running the show anywhere, and it's not fake. It's not inauthentic, but you would go to the cafeteria staff. You would speak to the paraprofessionals and the teachers and the families and the kids. Like, it's your job as an administrator in a school building to build relationships with everyone that keeps it humming. Like, you are not so important as the assistant principal or principal that if nobody else showed up, the school would run. Like, you are the least important person in that role. The students in a school come first. Everybody else that serves food, keeps it clean, teaches the kids. Like, I'm the least important person there. If I don't show up, school runs just fine. Like, I'm not important. Donald Trump is that same way. He goes to construction sites. He goes to McDonald's. He has a natural, easy way with folks, and he just connects with them and relates to them. And that's the appeal that people don't speak a lot about or even maybe recognize right away. But that's why so many of us are drawn to Donald Trump. He speaks like us. He says things about issues that we care about. And we can forgive him for being a billionaire. We don't care that he's a billionaire so much as he's relatable to us and fighting for us. When we talk about Nancy Pelosi just being some rich snob, that's because that's what she is. She despises you. She looks down on you if you're not in her class. Donald Trump is not that way. He uses his wealth for good for the rest of his community. And to your point about this being a fantastic article, folks, we'd encourage you to go to AmericanTribune.news and read the entire article, because it talks about why Donald Trump's aristocracy appeal is because, yes, he has money, but it's what he does with that money. It's what he does with his station. This is what people used to do. You would build things for your community to give back to your community. He's one of the very few billionaires, wealthy elites that shows any sort of care whatsoever for the rest of this country.
It's truly remarkable, and he represents a better time in America. Donald Trump is not a perfect man. Donald Trump didn't do everything right legislatively. Donald Trump was somebody that worked hard, ascended to be in the political elite, in the financially elite. He never forgot the people, the important people that work for him. He works to make the lives of people that work for him better. He wants to do that for Americans. And if all of our rich and powerful people did that, and it was funny when I was reading the article last night, Will was putting together, I'm like, just such great phraseology where it's like Nancy Pelosi, she sees the gardener. She doesn't even know his name. I mean, she's not like, oh, how can I make his life better? She's like, how come he didn't trim the shrubs perfect? Like, give me a new gardener, And Donald Trump understands that, like, the gardener's what makes the garden go. And we got to play a couple of these clips before we tune off to our YouTube, Facebook audience here.
All right, here we go. Trump working the fryer.
That timer, bring that one up. I'm gonna take care of these. Okay. Right there, right there. Got it.
I gotta say, Jason, hats off to the McDonald's employees as well. Like, this is Donald Trump we're talking about, billionaire playboy, president of the United States, and they're like, sir, you got to do the fries this way and that way. Like, I don't know if I would be shaking if I'm an 18-year-old kid interacting with Donald Trump that way, but all these employees were just so cool as well throughout the entire interaction. And I want to bring that back to what we were just talking about. Donald Trump puts them at ease because they get a sense that he cares. He's a real person. Everything about these interactions is awesome.
I love it.
You put that right far right, hang it right up there. Yeah. And then you want to do the salt over here?
Yeah.
I did these ones already. They're good. You just got to do that one right there. So grab that.
Let me give them extra salt.
No. Yep. Oh, yep. Good.
Okay.
Right there. And then we're going to grab the fry scoop right here.
Right.
Put it into there and just give them a twirl that way.
All right. Then we got one of Trump loading up the fries now. They're ready to go.
Keep it tight. Got the salt on it. Never touches the human hand.
Very good.
Nice and full.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, what else we got here? We'll just run down the clips and then we can talk about it more. But here is Donald Trump working the drive-thru.
Mr. President, you actually have worked at McDonald's now versus...
Now I have worked at McDonald's. I've now worked for 15 minutes more than Kamala.
Are you going to put this on your resume?
I never worked here.
Why would she lie about something like that?
Kamala.
Will be put on your resume.
I worked at McDonald's.
Why would she lie about that?
Why? Because she's lying, Kamala. That's
Yeah, we got one more.
Fun here, everybody.
Oh my God! Oh my
Look
God!
look at all the fake news over there. Hello, everybody.
You can fake this,
And
right?
you know this is compliments of Trump, okay?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Mr. President,
Yes.
please don't let the United States become Brazil, my native Brazil.
We'll keep it
Please,
good.
Please, please.
We're going to make it better than ever, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Mr.
Compliments
President.
of Trump.
Yes.
Have a good time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you over there.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Have a good time.
Thank
Nice
you.
to see you.
Just a regular person.
I got to say, Donald Trump. And here's what's funny. My favorite part was the reaction of the left, because the left said, this is staged. You realize that? Like, they screened the customers and they screamed the employees to make sure. And I'm like, the guy has lived through 2 assassination attempts in the last, how many months? 3 months? You really think they're going to drop him in a McDonald's in Philadelphia without screening people? So, yeah, just drive up to the counter. Like, are you
But that's all they
kidding me?
had. I guess the politicians never staged anything before. They've never done a photo op. They've never pretended to be something they're not. It's never happened before in politics. Donald Trump invented staging the McDonald's scene. Like, the absolute useless feedback from the left. But that's all they had, because this was such a slam dunk move by the Trump campaign.
Absolutely.
More, which they cannot stand. I mean, every McDonald's employee, what are the odds they vote for Trump? They're like, oh, I interacted with him. It turns out he's not a fascist. He's just a dude. He cared about me. It's more I can say about Kamala Harris.
So, Todd, we've broke down Kamala. We've broke down President Trump. I mean, we're still almost 2 weeks out from the election. We're down to 10 days. Now, folks, just for our election prep, we need this election too big to rig. We need President Trump to get 100 million votes, and we need him to win the popular vote. So if you're tuning into this podcast, we're in Minnesota, which Minnesota could be in play. I don't think he's going to win. Could be in play. If you're from Minnesota, go vote. California, highly unlikely he wins. Go vote. You know, any of these deep blue states, New York, and any of those, go vote. And the reason is We need the Republican Party to understand the mandate President Trump is being sent with. We need not just Democrats. We don't just need Trump to win. If you remember his first term, the people that didn't get the wall funded and didn't make things happen was the Republican Party. That's why we need these things, and we need this too big to rig.
All right, I'm trying to do some real-time stuff here, Jason. I'm just going to share my screen really fast. Speaking of Minnesota, just to get our Minnesota audience ginned up, in 2016, I told my friends at the time in 2016 Minnesota was in play. Donald Trump only lost by 1.5 points. He was polling really well in 2020 as well in Minnesota. And then if you look at New York, shoot, we hit the wrong button. This happens on a live show. Let me share a New York screen really fast. New York was a really tight race for the governor's mansion in 2022. Lee Zeldin ran an awesome campaign. A lot of these blue states, you're like, it doesn't matter, whatever. I live in Minnesota, I live in New York. Not true at all. Trump's going to Madison Square Garden. He thinks he has a shot at New York. He has had J.D. Vance, and he's been up here in Minnesota as well. He thinks he has a chance here. I think I saw some polls that, Minnesota's a toss-up at this point, a coin flip. Wherever you live, though, Jason, you and I have been harping on this a lot. We need the electoral landslide because we need Trump in the White House, but we need the popular mandate to shut up the left and shut up the rhinos. A popular mandate stops their conversation about moving to a popular vote format and getting rid of the Electoral College, and it gives all these spineless Republicans in office. Because remember, in 2016, Donald Trump entered the White House with a Republican House and Senate majority, and nothing got done because he had backstabbing rhinos everywhere he turned. And so popular mandate can give them a little bit of courage juice, maybe, to stand by Trump's policies, the stuff he's trying to get done to turn this country around. So everyone go vote. Give Trump the popular mandate. Let's make this happen.
Absolutely. On that note, Todd, should we log off Facebook, YouTube?
Folks, we are going to get into some predictions about what happens leading up to the election, things that we cannot talk about on Facebook. And I've got some thoughts about what happens when Trump wins the election as well. But this is a Rumble-only topic. So if you're on Facebook, download the app, head over there in your web browser, Rumble at the American Tribune. We are still live, but we've got to sign off from Facebook now.
Folks, thanks for tuning in. Facebook, YouTube, we'll see you next week.